Are we live? We're live.
We're dancing.
We're dancing. Aloha! Welcome to Talk Story Tuesday with Soul Flow Alchemy and my dear sister and entrepreneur and luminary of our upcoming virtual program, Elizabeth Lee Robinson. And this is a little bit crooked. So as people are kind of joining the conversation, I will just do that little bit of an adjustment. And that's Polish Ambassador in the background. If you like the groove, you can look it up. And I'll turn that down now.
All the techie stuff.
All the techie stuff. You gotta love it and hate it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so here we are.
Hi.
Hi. And
Hello.
We've definitely been sisters from many other lifetimes before. Mm-hmm. And so first, I guess I will just share that the context for this particular Tuesday story, Talk Story Tuesday, is I'm excited, we're excited. Soul Flow Alchemy is rolling out, we have rolled out the registration for a 9-month women's birthing your inner bliss and awakening your inner sacred fire virtual coaching program. And I have reached out to some very, very special, I've handpicked some really inspiring, the most inspiring women and sisters in my life. And not only sisters, but also colleagues and mentors and teachers. And Elizabeth is the first of 6 that I am going to talk story with to introduce people to this wonderful, wonderful woman. And so first I would love to just introduce her. And I am not going to go, this is not going to be a short introduction.
I'm going to sit back and listen to this.
You're going to sit back and take it in. Take it in. And who just joined us? Hi, Angela. Hello, Brooke. It's so good to see you, ladies. Thanks for joining. Yeah, and so hopefully also with both of us here sharing, and we'll see, we're going to go with the feminine flow in this conversation. Mm-hmm. And, you know, it's all going to be under the umbrella of awakening your sacred feminine fire, and also in the context of transformational coaching. Mm. So that's a good segue for introducing my sister, Elizabeth. She's an entrepreneur. She's a transformational coach. She is, I see you as a shamaness, very, very much so. A very inspiring and powerful facilitator of ceremony and of alchemy. Mm-hmm. And she's also the co-founder of Evenpulse with her husband Stephen. Mm-hmm. And we'll get into a little bit about that. She's also the godmother of my son.
That is the most important thing. I am Mama Lani.
She is Mama Lani of Sakai Lokahi, and her husband Stephen is Papa Lani of Sakai Lokahi. And I really, really value and just cherish our relationship with you guys, and also this experience of what is possible for the world in terms of, I feel like many times, especially up until I met you guys, much of my professional life mm-hmm. was very separate from my personal life. Mm-hmm. And so you and Stephen are like just a shining example in our lives, and for me, of that beautiful alchemy and harmony and harmonious way of being professionally related mm-hmm. and personally related.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
That's really important.
And so this is the year 2017. So I met Elizabeth about 10 years ago now, I think.
I think it was 10.
And I know.
It goes fast.
Yeah, we haven't aged a bit, have we? We just keep getting younger and crazier and wilder and more in touch with, I think, our wild feminine side as the years go. And interestingly, I think I was like, if there was one word that brought us together, what would it be? What would you say?
One word that brought us together. Woo.
This
Put
word
me on
just
the
popped
spot.
in my head today. I was like, huh.
I am flashing to a movie when the young boy complains to someone saying he's a wannabe. And the grandfather says, yeah, he wanna be connected. That's what just flashed in my head. We wanted to be connected. That's not one word. But connectivity was source. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I would add the word neuroscience.
Oh, yes. That's true.
Because as I thought about you and as I prepared a few questions for her this evening and I was going through our history, which is a lot. We have a lot of history. Beautiful, amazing history. And the one thing that if I didn't have my background in neuroscience, I don't think...
We might not have met.
Nope.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it was through Newfield Network and Chris Balsley, sorry.
He's ballsy and he's ballsly.
He is ballsy. And he was my mentor coach in my coach training program at the time.
Yeah, yeah.
And he was working with Elizabeth and Stephen. And because of my military upbringing as well. So I grew up in a military family, for those of you who don't know. And so I met, not Elizabeth that day, but I met them on a military base. That's how we connected, down at Fort Carson in Colorado. And basically, I was floored. And I'm still, in my mind, for the rest of my life, you guys are like such an inspiration. And I feel like this story, you guys have to do a TED Talk. Several, I'm sure they're coming. But basically, especially considering my upbringing and living on military bases most of my younger life and being around soldiers and that whole world and that whole reality is very, very, it's very masculine. And I would say this on a scale from 1 to 10 in terms of spirituality and heart opening, presence and breath and all of that. You just don't really find it very often on a military base. And I walk into this room and I watch them facilitate over 100 soldiers in this room getting ready to go to Afghanistan to fight. And they are basically teaching them concepts of meditation, of heart math, like showing them how when you focus on things that you appreciate in your heart and you focus on the heart, and they were doing the biofeedback and it was and you were projecting their neurophysiology and the heart neurophysiology up in front of the room, and they were taking they took one soldier as a guinea pig sitting in the chair, and the whole room watching that one soldier, all his buddies, right? And then the HRV, basically the beat to beat variability of how harmonious your breath is with your nervous system. And it was all over the graph was just bing, 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 bing. It was very erratic, which is normal for a lot of people. But then they had him close his eyes, they had him breathe, they had him think of a really beautiful memory from the past. And right before our eyes, we got to watch the literal graph of his heart neurophysiology go from like this to a really beautiful, smooth sine wave. And he just dropped right into that coherent zone. And that's when I was like, what are these people doing? That is amazing. And they didn't use the words meditation. They didn't use the words spirituality.
No.
They didn't use any of those words. So they are really, you guys are masters of using, of creatively using language to build bridges.
Yeah, I would say we are definitely bridge builders and synthesizing information so that it meets who you're speaking to in a way that they can relate to it. Because if you speak, if you come in and you're esoteric about it with a non-esoteric audience, you're going to turn people off rather than turning them on, rather than having them listen. And so meeting them where they are, I always used to joke that we were like a Trojan horse, and that we came in with a very deep and profound message, but we found a language that was their language, a way to bring it to them in a way that they could stay tuned, and also backed a lot of it by science. Because if you're not backing it by science and making it relevant to a Western world, a Western mind, and a Western male, then you're probably going to miss the boat on that.
Exactly.
So we did a lot of synthesizing of information to be able to bring that to, military and law enforcement. And it was 100 soldiers morning and afternoon for 5.5, 6 weeks. So it was 6,000 over the course, or no, it was 4,000 over the course of that pre-deployment. It was. It
was a lot of people. It was a big project. In fact, it's now a funded government research project. They're analyzing data to have it published, right?
Yeah, during the time, this was back in 2008 and 9, and the funding source out of Washington said, I'll fund the training, but I also want to have it funded. I also want to have it researched, because if it does what you say it's going to do, we need to know. And so it became a 3.5-year, $3 million research project that showed incredible results with team cohesion, with driving anxiety, stress, and PTSD markers down, driving resilience and self-efficacy up. And still to this day we get emails from soldiers who took that training and said that changed my life, that saved my life, that impacted my life, it saved my marriage. And it was in a 4-hour training, which, we had initially had a 2-day training program, and when we approached the commander that we were working with, he said, you have 2 hours. we're getting ready to go to war. And I'm like, sir, 2 hours is not enough to do a resilience training program. How about 4 hours? So the way that I always thought of it was, and I think I probably told you this back then, we had to basically, if you think about essential oil, or what it takes to create a dram of rose oil, it's like 10,000 roses to create 1 dram of rose oil, and it's something like that.
Wow.
And I remember just thinking, this is what we have to do with this body of information. There's so much science and so much research. We need to understand so much about the brain and the body and the nervous system. And we need to teach the skills that are relevant to this audience. And to do that in 4 hours, we basically have to create essential oil.
That is a great analogy. So basically that is exactly what they did and still do. And now how do you still have it, do you still deliver it in 4-hour increments?
We have a lot of different ways of delivery, and it really depends. Sometimes when we're working with tactical markets, which would be law enforcement, military, first responders, we need to do it in condensed periods of time. And there are other audiences that will take more time. Sometimes corporate environments are glad to step into a 2-day process. It's
and if you're watching and this perks your curiosity at all so far from what you hear, you can even since supposedly you're on your screen in a computer, you can go to Evenpulse, right? Evenpulse.com? Or is it .org?
It's .com, yeah. Evenpulse.com.
Evenpulse.com to see what her and her husband, I guess that's the umbrella that they carry and offer this work through now.
Yeah, and I think, one thing that's probably relevant for most people who are listening is that this is a lot about...
Hi, Tanya. Sorry.
Hi,
and
Tanya.
Shanae. Hello, beauties.
This is a lot about the stress and low-grade anxiety that is pervasive through not only our culture, but our families, our friendships, our co-working relationships. And I always think of stress like a thief. And anxiety, it comes and it steals our dreams, it steals relationships, it's something that drains our life force from
It
us.
steals, I think, also our ability to just even see ourselves clearly.
Absolutely, yeah. And so, I think one of the things I get the most excited about is when I realize that stress and anxiety are one of those things that we can influence moment to moment, day by day, situation to situation, and become very empowered to do something about. And to me, there's nothing more exciting than realizing that we are kind of this soup of human condition, right? We're mental, emotional, physical, spiritual beings, and we have built within us these extraordinary ways of regulating and being masterful. It's like rising up from being in default mode and being driven by our autonomic or automatic responses,
Right.
and becoming the extraordinary sacred human beings that we are, and being able to choose higher and higher skill levels. And when we do that, our life begins to reflect that, because we begin to show up in a different way, and we begin to evolve at a higher level of vibration, of manifestation, and then you're more in the driver's seat rather than being a passenger. Because my relationship to an understanding of stress in my life and trauma is I always felt like a passenger in my own life. Like, who was driving my life? I was a passenger.
And I just have to interject for a second here. I've learned so much from Stephen and Elizabeth outside of my own studies in neuroscience, and one of the areas that they've really opened my mind and body up to is the concept of trauma and what it is, and how the body processes it or doesn't process it, and how the body can release it. And I really appreciate Elizabeth's personal experiences. Like, she's not one of those, okay, I studied this and so I know this, but no, she's been in the ditches, right, of trauma, and we won't get into details about that. So she's had to do a lot of this work on her own, and so she really understands the world of trauma inside and out. And I feel like you also bring a really we'll kind of circle back around to this circles, but in this world of especially the military or law enforcement and all these places that you go to that you and Stephen go to are these very masculine institutions.
Yeah. And I came from, I would say the first part of my career and my young adulthood being in circles of women, and I used to joke about how I went from circles of women to straight lines of men, and what a bizarre transformation that was to be in such a different environment where, when we are in circle, we are in a container. We create something sacred just by the mere virtue of sitting in a circle, because a circle is sacred. It represents so many things in our life, from the alpha to the omega, the beginning and the end, eternity, the ever evolving loop of life, the spiral, the medicine wheel.
The isness of life.
Yeah.
Yeah, the beingness of
Yeah.
life. And so this is interesting too. So now I'm remembering the very first moment I met Elizabeth, like face to face, was after I was in the training room with Stephen and all the soldiers.
Yep.
And so I didn't know what, I definitely did not expect to meet her. And then I was sitting next to you at the dinner table. We were down in Colorado Springs, and it was the very first night we met. And on a tiny little piece of paper, which I think I still have probably in my altar somewhere, she is passionately sharing with me how their model came to be. This model of resiliency that they distilled down to 4 hours, and she starts drawing the sacred circle in the form of a medicine wheel, and she starts laying out like the different directions, the 4 cardinal directions, and the elements and the archetypes, and
something I would not do for our clients at that time, but was definitely a part of how the model came to be. Because, I mean, in a way, you could say we can't argue the human condition. We're made up of a mental, emotional, physical body. We have whatever, and spiritual, and a lot of times, to be ecumenical, we would call the spiritual worldview. So whatever your worldview is, that would make up that aspect of the human condition. And that just sits so beautifully and has for millennia onto the medicine wheel as a way of understanding self and our place in the world. And so that was where we began as a basis for finding the skill sets. I used to always say, when it comes to stress,
it was like the very specific applied skills.
Yes.
Because it's one thing to talk about the archetypes of like, okay, the element of water, really embodies this and this and this, but what are the skill sets that you can directly apply to your own life in the moment that you need it?
Yeah, and when I would think of my own experience with stress and trauma and recovery, my curiosity used to be around, what if you wake up at 2 a.m. and you don't have a doctor, you don't have a therapist, you don't have a prescription. It's you and you alone in the middle of the night. What am I going to do? What am I going to
Like kind of on the verge of a panic attack, you mean?
Yeah.
Or like...
Yeah, or anything that, may be a trigger. And we have a culture of looking outside of ourselves for the answers, so much so that we forget.
That never happens.
Right? That we forget that
God.
we have so much of the power inside of ourselves. So I think that's where we really wanted to create skill sets that were based on turning within and taking our awareness and going and scanning that internal environment and being able to access, things that are already built within us. It's a shift of going from default to deliberate. For example, we are born and we will one day die, and we never need to be taught how to breathe.
Right.
Our brain and our body and our nervous system will do it for us. But when we learn to breathe with effective, deliberate skill and intent, we have now turned on the most powerful skill that we can access as human beings to be more self-masterful in every single situation, right?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And I have to say that was another really like pivotal point in my life, because I had just come back when I met you, I had just come back from South America.
That's right. Yeah.
So, and that was my introduction to Native American, indigenous, at least in the Amazonian regions, of working with plant medicine and elements and that sort of thing. And that was right out of my like very rigid Western biomedical study of neuroscience. And so when I met you and I could tell that you had this really deep connection to the indigenous ways, And when you laid out the medicine wheel the way that you did, since then I've never been able to look at it the same way. And so I thank you for that, and I feel like that needs to be common knowledge for everyone, you know. Like I feel like I feel like one thing that is incorporated into this 9-month program. Like one of the first things that we're going to have women do is create sacred space. And I know that you can say a lot and guide a lot in terms of
It's one of my favorite things,
right? In terms of how to. Hi, sweetie. Nova and Sakai are watching. And hi, Donna. Aloha from Hawaii. You met Donna.
I did meet Donna. Hi, Donna.
You met Donna
I did.
in Kailua. In Kailua. So anyway, sorry. It's like I want to say hi, and then I lose track. So sacred space. And that's, I feel, one of, it took me many years before I started to, wherever I would go, whether it's my own home or checking into a hotel room for the night or a condo for the week, to bring sacred items and create some sacred space, a little altar, you know, to really hold anchors of spiritual guidance, somewhere to come to, wake up in the morning, light a candle, and stay in that spiritual remembrance and flow. And so this woman is a master, a masteress, mistress at creating sacred space. I've learned so much from you about that. And so that's definitely one thing. I think there's so many things that you can bring in, and so that's definitely an example. And just listening to her, how many of you can just really get the sense of...
It's hard to sit here and take all this, I will say.
Of her, just her beauty and her genuine, authentic, extraordinary, and feminine essence. You know, I really want, that's another reason I wanted you to be a luminary, because you are a shining example of being a very powerful change agent in the world, and being able to sit in the boardroom with 15 other executives, male, and officers in the military, and somehow stand your sit and stand in your power. But you don't. I feel like a lot of women, I know I did this when I was in graduate school, I felt like I had to hide my femininity.
Yeah, I think that's really
And
common.
you, I don't know if you see this or not, but you have, I feel, a gift in being able to show up in places where very important conversations are happening and big decisions are being made. And instead of hiding your feminine essence, it comes and it radiates into the room. And you have an ability to create that effect of all hearts softening.
Well, and you know, from a neuroscience standpoint, when we are in that good, smooth, steady sine wave of the HRV that Jinju was talking about at the beginning of this call, we influence within a 10-foot radius the people around us. And so one of the skills that we always talk about is me calm, you calm. And so if
I don't remember that one.
Yeah, that's in there, and it's part of I think it's part of the simulation section, and it does impact the way. I mean, this is right. You're talking to a beautiful mother here of a toddler who I watch exhibit this all the time, and that's you. And I'm sure it's not always easy to stay in that space, but you do such a beautiful job with Sakai of staying in that calm, regulated space where it's then having an influence on how he's responding. And it's not just an influence on monkey see, monkey do from a behavioral standpoint.
Right. No, this is a physiological, electromagnetic language. Like, this is a language.
Yeah.
that science is finding and decoding.
And I think the other thing that's important is it is the art of feminine presence as a woman. And it's also the balance, I've not been super fond, like I love the goddess thing. I love the, uber feminine. And sometimes I'll hear women saying, it's time for women to take over the world again. It's time for women to rise up and XYZ. And my feeling always is, yes, that is true, because I think women have a very, very important part and place in changing the world. The Dalai Lama says the Western woman will save the world. There's a Chinese proverb that we often talk about in Sister Mind that says, when sleeping women wake, mountains will move. And I do believe we have a particular job to do.
Responsibility.
And responsibility.
Kuliana. Yes, absolutely.
At this time. However,
not alone.
Not without. And it's to me, it's about, we all have masculine and feminine within us. I am equally masculine to my feminine. And you could think of the masculine as the active, conceptive spark of the universe, and the feminine as the receptive, creative, intuitive part of ourselves. And it's the balance of those two that I feel most interested in. And in the past, we've been seeing the shadow of masculine and the shadow of the feminine. And we've been in shadow in our aspects of ourselves, and now it's time to bring those into balance, so we feel the equal, because the men, they're awakening now more than ever in these last decades to their feminine.
Absolutely.
And showing up in ways that, I see more dads now who are such good dads and so good with their kids.
Absolutely.
And they're doing things that haven't been done in decades, if not millennia. And now we're actually beginning to see the balance of the masculine and feminine, and we are seeing them come into the light and out of the shadow. And that excites me.
That excites me. And that actually, that in many ways is the core intention of this program. I feel like it's coming into balance, but maybe not fast enough. Like I feel
it's never fast enough.
It's crumbling, but it's not crumbling fast
right?
enough. And still, I don't know. It's hard to put numbers on this, but I feel like I can sense, like, in terms of environments where I just feel like it's very natural to not shield my heart and my vulnerability and my softness and nurturing aspects of myself, the percentage is still less than half, and for men especially, right? For men especially. So I only had one question. I feel like we're kind of on this topic right now.
Yeah.
So I was like, if I could ask Elizabeth one question during this conversation, what would it be? So the question is, what do you feel is the biggest barrier for women and people in general to embodying their sacred feminine essence? Might be too big of a question, but just whatever trickles up is...
I think some of this may become philosophical because it depends on what your belief systems are. I happen to believe that we have multiple lives and we're born again and again. And I think that when we have the weight of all of these past lives within our matrix somewhere, but not necessarily accessible to us, we don't consciously necessarily remember. But these...
Like from another lifetime? Okay.
Yeah, from another lifetime. But we're imprinted somehow by it. And I'll give you an example of what I mean.
Okay.
I would say in part one of the greatest barriers to embodying feminine essence.
And when I say the word embody, I guess I should probably discern what that means for anyone. And so I guess when I say it in this context, it's that to take it not so that it's not this concept in the head, but actually a very living experience and aliveness in the body, and in moment to moment, day to day living.
Yeah, beautifully said. And I might say that one barrier for people is fear of persecution. It's fear of being seen and then judged for the way that they might show up. I know this is quite personal, but when we started the work with the military, when Stephen and I first started Evenpulse, we were doing work with corporate and healthcare. And the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq began, and this series of events happened, and these doors opened, and Stephen was like, "Oh my God, we have to go in this direction." And I was like, I was a total deer in headlights, and I'm like, how are we going to do that, and who are we to just walk in there? And I had all these questions, but he finally said to me, "What are you afraid of?" And I said, "I don't know how to explain this, but my feeling is if they see me, they'll kill me."
Wow. I have heard you say this before.
That was the essence. It was like I was actually terrified, and I could not explain it. I had no good reason for being able to say that I felt that way. And so if you've ever had an experience like that, you've ever had something that was just unexplainable or inexplicable, it may not be from this lifetime. It may be from other lifetimes that's imprinted in your psyche and in your consciousness.
And I'm just curious of everyone watching right now or tuning in later and hearing this in this moment, if you could maybe just comment below. It'd be really interesting to see how many of us have ever had that kind of a feeling. And you can leave as much or as little detail as you like, because that's a very profound, specific example, addressing
and being
why
seen. That is a big thing. And then I guess in terms of barriers to that,
well, I think you named it.
Yeah, for sure. Fear, and then even maybe honoring, having the wherewithal and the determination to see value in being a woman in your full expression of being a woman, and to honor that, because we live in ways that might not necessarily honor. This woman knows how to do that. When you sign up for this 9 months, you're going to be guided in ways that are definitely going to bring that out in you and bring that through you to probably levels that maybe you've never experienced before, and see how it changes your life in showing up in that way.
Well, I feel a lot like you and probably many other women, where it's navigating this very, it's like walking on ice sometimes. It's like walking on ice sometimes, and I definitely experience those fears, or just raise my voice a little bit because I feel like I need to when maybe I really don't, or or close my heart. But with Sakai, he is such a great teacher. Yeah. My 2.5-year-old, because my commitment, right? Because there's our experience in life, and there's our past autonomic nervous system and neural response and reaction. And ideally, I'm committed to keeping my heart open. That's my commitment, because I've seen the difference and I've felt the difference of when conflict arises, and hearts either close or stay open, makes all the difference for everyone involved. And so this is not an easy thing to practice, but it is my commitment. And I think that is part of, when I think of it, like awakening the sacred feminine. Kuan Yin is back here somewhere, but just I think of Kuan Yin and her compassion. She is the Chinese goddess of, and they call her like Divine Mother of Mercy, Divine Mother of Compassion, and I think that this is something like, I don't see the harm in inspiring, in all of us taking little steps toward embodying our own Kuan Yin, like really just, and you. And I feel Kuan Yin in you. Compassion exudes, and I like to surround myself, and this is very important too. We must surround ourselves with those who inspire us to be what we want to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the company we keep says a great deal about how we're evolving in this world. And I think too, I often think of, it's interesting because I think of when I pray, or when I do a lot of sweat lodges and things like this, and we get to the place in the wheel when you call in the Akalodahe, the ascended masters, the saints, the archangels, and I think of who I connect with in that way.
Who do you connect with most?
Well, I have a host. I have a host of them.
Are any of them here right now?
Right, sure they are. And it's really, it is very much equally feminine and masculine. And I feel them and call to them for different aspects of my life. But all of them for me, from Mother Mary to Kuan Yin to Archangel Michael to Saint Germain, feel like warriors. I associate, and I don't mean as in the act of war, or even as in the act of fighting for something, but as in the act of showing up. Like, to be present is a warrior's task. Just to be present is a huge warrior task assignment in your life, of being able to hold space, of being able to breathe through listening when you're hearing something that's disruptive or disturbing, and not to dissociate and fly out of your body when it's bad news, or you hear something that is unacceptable, as we do every day. We turn on the news. Seriously, I mean, we're resisting so much of that so often. And I think one of the things in my shamanic path that has helped me more than anything has been this idea that there's two enemies of the warrior. And the two enemies of the warrior are self-importance and self-pity, which are kind of two ends of a spectrum. And
Self-importance and self-pity. Yeah, I'm going to write that one down later.
And as you begin to really explore where you are self-important...
Shanae says, this makes me think of Lightwalkers.
Is it a book? Lightwalkers?
Yeah, what are Lightwalkers? Is it a book?
Or are
or
they...
Pleiadians?
Yeah,
are these aliens?
Fill us in what they are. I like that though, Lightwalkers, and this has been many years of exploration and catching myself day after day, moment after moment, of where I tip into being self-important, where I know better, or I become self-righteous, or I think my way is the right way. And watching for those thoughts and actions inside of myself, all the way to the other end of the spectrum, which is self-pity, which tends to come up a lot around. I mean, self-pity can be, it's raining outside and it's going to ruin my picnic, all the way to I didn't have the love that I needed growing up. My mother didn't breastfeed me. Whatever it might be that you think you got, sent to the back of the line when they were handing out the golden keys for life. And all of us vacillate between these two. There is none of us that do not have a fair measure of self-importance or self-pity. And the practice is being aware of when that arises and how it really diminishes your powers as a warrior.
And that's Vijnanamaya Kosha, for those of you who have studied with me before. And
it's a way of being. Thank you. So Lightwalkers is a way of being, yes. And there's somebody knocking at the door. In the African...
We're still
Hi.
filming, but you're welcome to join us.
Yeah, in African ways, a good sneeze or a knock on the door is meaning the ancestors are agreeing. Right?
We can introduce another sister over here, and while she's making herself comfortable, I just want to, for everyone who's watching, I would just want to remind you that of the context of this, and throw us some more hearts. Those feel really good. Thank you. Thank you. So Elizabeth, again, is a luminary for this virtual program of birthing your inner bliss, awakening your inner sacred, inner feminine fire to birth. Thank you.
Take those hearts.
Take to birth your inner bliss. And if you love what you are hearing, and you're just getting a little taste of Elizabeth and her wisdom and her mastery, so we are going to be so lucky to get even more of this, and it's going to be available throughout the 9 months. And so I'm just so honored to have you as a sister and as a colleague and as a coach and as a change agent and a heart and a mamalani to help hold space for the work that we're here to do on this planet right now. And this is another sister who I'm so excited to introduce you. This is Sasha.
Hi, Sasha.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
And this is so she's coming to Indonesia with us.
Excellent.
And I was telling Sasha about you the other day because you have the same birthday.
10/11.
Nice.
You're a fellow raven.
Yes, and she's a fellow healer and mover and I think a shamaness as well, and traveler and lover of life and of heart and spirit and children. And the universe orchestrated a very, feels like a miracle to me at the very last minute. Right, at the very last minute. So, and Elizabeth is a luminary for a program, and which we'll be doing this from Indonesia, but it's going to be global. And you're going to come out and visit.
I sure hope so. Because why would I not want to come
Why
to
would you-
Indonesia?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe, earthquakes and volcanoes, but, we just won't talk about
work
that
around
right now.
those. We work around those.
Oh, and then Shanae was saying it's a way of being. Okay, Lightwalkers, a way of being. Yeah, so we are, I don't know, does anyone have any questions? Is anyone feeling inspired? Does anyone have any more hearts you want to throw?
Let's throw this out.
Oh, thank you so much for joining us. We probably are at the point where we should wrap up. Please go check out, check out the link that's in this post. If you're curious at all about this 9-month program and this global sisterhood, and there is a discount code just for you who's watching, just for those of you who are watching, so you can get an additional Yes!
More hearts. Back at you.
This is Padme Mudra, shining our heart energy at you. There you go. Shh. So if you register by December 31st, you get that additional $100 off. And it's also money back guarantee. Like, we believe in this, and we don't want there to be any barriers between you and the transformation or the alchemy or the health that and the dreams that you are calling into. So you have nothing to lose by saying yes, and you can reach me with any questions. And I'm looking forward to more conversations with amazing, inspiring women like you both. And if you want to learn more about Elizabeth and her husband, we didn't even get into Sister Mind. This is a busy woman. You can go to Evenpulse.com and check out their work there. And you can also go, is Sister Mind?
SisterMindCircle.com.
SisterMindCircle.com, which is more for entrepreneurs, right? For women who are ready to just explode in their businesses and say, all right, I'm ready to make more than 6 figures or something like that. I'm ready for that.
7+.
I know.
Let's go there.
I know.
Financial freedom. That's the next topic.
Absolutely. It's an important topic.
Yeah.
It's a fun topic, right?
It is.
It's a fun topic.
Yeah.
Do you have any last words?
Just thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me and for engaging just in great inquisitive conversation and curiosity about why we're here, what we're doing, and how we can be more of ourselves and more of our expanded, beautiful, luminous beings. And I look forward to meeting you women in the 9-month coaching program with
Chene is in
Jinju.
it.
And I know you will have an amazing journey with this woman here.
With all of us. Yes, you will have an amazing journey, and it's gonna be an amazing year.
Yeah, I think I have that feeling too. 2018 is going to be a game-changing year in many ways.
Yeah. So aloha and namaste. Thank you all so much. Thank you so much, sister. This was so much fun.
Thank you.
I love you so much. And I'm probably going to do a talk story just with her, talking about the synchronicity of how this angel came into my life. Oh, some of you probably know her. We didn't realize how many friends we have in common. Right? And have a beautiful evening, everyone, and sweet dreams, and happy solstice. Yeah, happy solstice. Happy holy days.
Let that be your balance.
Mwah.
Ciao, Bellas.